The town square falls asleep. The last note from the saxophone floats over Lake Sumter Landing like a prolonged sigh. The saxophonist leans forward slightly, eyes closed, extracting from the night all the melancholy it can offer. His fingers hover over the keys for just a moment longer than necessary, as if reluctant to break the spell he's cast over the remaining dancers. Around him, the other band members begin to lower their instruments. The double bass rests on its stand with a soft thud. The baquettes of the drummer settle gently on the snare drum. The guitarist unplugs his cable with a barely audible pop from the amplifier. It's always like this. The music doesn't end abruptly. It dissolves, like sugar stirred into warm water, as if refusing to admit the moment has passed. On the dance floor, couples sway to the final song, a slow, bluesy number that seems designed specifically for this purpose. For closure, for the gentle unwinding of an evening. A man in a cream-colored guayabera shirt, embroidered with delicate patterns along the front panels, holds his wife closer, their steps smaller now, barely moving, as if dancing has become simply an excuse to embrace. His hand rests on the small of her back, and her head tilts slightly against his shoulder. They've danced together for 43 years, and it shows in the way they move, not as two separate bodies trying to coordinate, but as a single entity swaying to an internal rhythm that only they can hear. Another couple nearby, white-haired and elegant, turns in slow circles near the edge of the wooden dance floor. She wears a flowing floral dress that catches the breeze with each turn, and he's in pressed slacks and a polo shirt, his posture remarkably straight for a man of 78. Their decades together are visible in the effortless way they anticipate each other's movements. He guides with the slightest pressure of his palm. She responds before the signal is even complete. No words pass between them. None are needed. A younger couple, younger by village's standards, perhaps in their early 60s, holds each other with a different kind of intensity. They moved here only 6 months ago, leaving behind careers and a large house in Connecticut that had become too quiet after their children scattered across the country. Everything here is still new to them, still miraculous. The fact that live music happens every single night, that people dress up to go out, that there's always somewhere to be, something to do. They're still in the honeymoon phase with this place, still enchanted by the unreality of it all. No one wants to be the first to leave. It's a silent agreement among the remaining crowd, perhaps 30 or 40 people still gathered around the bandstand. To be the first to go would be to admit that the evening is truly over, that tomorrow is inevitable. That time, despite the best efforts of this manufactured paradise, continues its forward march. The lead singer leans into the microphone one last time, her red lips almost touching the silver mesh. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much. Drive safely now. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Her voice is warm, familiar, touched with a slight southern accent that may or may not be authentic. The voice of someone who has closed hundreds of these evenings, who knows exactly the right tone to strike, grateful but not effusive, warm but professional, already looking forward but acknowledging the present moment. She's in her mid-50s, a transplant from Nashville who found steadier work here than she ever did trying to make it in the music industry. 3 nights a week she plays here, 2 nights at Spanish Springs, and Sunday afternoons at a private event venue. It's a good living, better than she ever expected. And if the songs are sometimes the same week after week, well, the audience doesn't seem to mind. They come for the familiarity as much as the music. Applause ripples through the remaining crowd. Genuine and appreciative, the sound of hands clapping mixing with the rustle of palm fronds overhead in the warm breeze. Some people whistle, a few call out bravo and beautiful. The band members smile and wave, taking small bows. The drummer stands and waves both sticks in the air. It's a ritual they've performed countless times, but there's nothing perfunctory about it. The appreciation flows both ways. The musicians grateful for an engaged audience. The audience grateful for musicians who still care, who still put energy into a Tuesday night performance at a retirement community in Central Florida. Slowly, reluctantly, the square begins to empty. Golf carts hum to life in the nearby parking area, their electric motors producing a gentle whirring sound, their headlights cutting through the warm darkness like searching fingers. Some are elaborate affairs, customized with lifted suspensions, LED underglow lighting, custom paint jobs, and sound systems that cost more than the carts themselves. Others are simple utility vehicles, basic transportation. Couples walk arm in arm toward the parking areas, their voices low, still caught in the spell of the evening, discussing where they parked or whether they should stop for ice cream on the way home. A group of 6 friends lingers near the fountain, laughing about something, postponing the inevitable return home. They're all widows, all in their 70s, and they've formed a tight bond since arriving in the villages at various points over the last 5 years. They call themselves the Merry Widows, though there's something defiant rather than merry about them. Women who refuse to let loss define them, who sold their family homes and moved here to build new lives. Tonight they've been drinking wine spritzers and critiquing the dancing. "Did you see Helen out there?" one of them says. "I swear she and Bob were doing the tango to a swing number." They dissolve into laughter again. None of them are ready for the evening to end, for the return to their individual villas, to the silence that still sometimes catches them off guard. The band packs up their equipment with practiced efficiency, moving with the economy of motion that comes from doing the same task hundreds of times. Microphone stands collapse with metallic clicks. Cables coil in neat loops over forearms, over and under, over and under. The proper way to prevent kinking. Amplifiers are tilted back on built-in wheels and rolled away. The keyboard player disassembles his stand and slides his Nord stage into a flight case with the tenderness of someone handling something both valuable and beloved. The stage lights dim, then go dark with a heavy clunk from the breaker box somewhere backstage. Within 20 minutes, there's no evidence they were ever there except for the faint impressions of chair legs on the wooden platform. Indentations in the wood that will fade by morning. The retail shops that ring the square have been closed for an hour already. Their interiors dark except for security lights that cast everything in a pale, otherworldly glow. Through the windows you can see mannequins frozen mid-gesture, racks of clothing standing at attention, display cases of jewelry catching occasional glints of light from outside. A home decor store, a boutique selling resort wear, a shop specializing in golf accessories, an art gallery featuring local artists painting endless variations of Florida sunsets and hibiscus flowers. During the day, these shops do brisk business with residents who have both money and time to spare. But by 10 p.m., they've shuttered, leaving only the restaurants and bars to carry the evening forward. By 11:30, even those have begun their closing rituals. Waiters in black vests and bow ties wipe down tables and flip chairs onto tabletops. Bartenders count registers and pour the contents of tip jars into backpacks and purses. Kitchen staff emerge from back doors, carrying bags of trash to dumpsters, their chef's whites stained with the evidence of the evening's service. A busboy props open a service door to smoke a cigarette, standing in the spill of yellow light from the kitchen, scrolling through his phone while the smoke curls up into the darkness. By midnight, the square is nearly deserted. A security guard makes his rounds, checking doors with ritualistic thoroughness, his flashlight beams sweeping across storefronts, probing the shadows between buildings, checking that every lock is engaged. He's in his 60s, a retired police officer from New Jersey who took this job partly for something to do and partly for the modest income that supplements his pension. He knows every inch of this square, every hiding spot, every door that doesn't quite close properly, every shop that always forgets to turn off a light in the back room. His route never varies, counterclockwise around the square, checking each door twice, once with his hand and once with his eyes, noting anything unusual in the small notebook he carries in his shirt pocket. A maintenance worker empties trash bins, working with headphones in, lost in whatever podcast or music keeps him company during these lonely hours. The sound of bottles clinking against plastic punctuates the quiet as he dumps recycling into a larger bin on the back of a small utility vehicle. He moves with the efficient boredom of someone deep into a night shift, thinking perhaps about the breakfast he'll eat when he gets home, or the TV show he's been binge-watching, or whether he remembered to pay the electric bill. His job is to make the square pristine again, to erase all evidence of human presence so that tomorrow morning it can feel fresh and unspoiled. He empties ashtrays into bags, wipes down tables that outdoor diners used, picks up the occasional dropped napkin or receipt. The restaurants have closed completely now. Their patio chairs stacked in neat towers of 4, umbrellas furled and tied with bungee cords against the wind. Through windows, you can see the last of the staff leaving through back doors, calling goodnight to each other, their voices echoing in the emptiness. A manager sets an alarm system, checking twice that the door is properly locked before walking to his car. The smells of the evening, garlic and grilled meat, sweet desserts and spilled beer, still hang faintly in the air, but they're fading, giving way to the natural scents of night-blooming flowers and the lake itself. A clean, slightly mineral smell that speaks of fish and algae and the slow processes of nature. And then, finally, true stillness descends. The fountain continues its eternal conversation with itself, water rising in the center column, catching the light as it reaches its apex, then falling in a perfect circular sheet back into the pool below, creating ripples that travel outward until they lap gently against the tiled edges. The sound is different now without the crowds, more pronounced, almost musical in its variations. You can hear individual streams of water, can distinguish the splash of the main column from the smaller jets around the perimeter, can hear the deeper note where water meets water in the pool itself. It's a complex symphony that during the day gets lost in the noise of conversation and traffic and music, but now stands alone, the dominant voice in the square's nighttime chorus. The decorative lights strung through the oak trees cast gentle pools of amber on the pavement below. These are old oaks, transplanted here at great expense when the square was built, chosen specifically for their size and character. Their branches spread wide, creating a canopy that provides shade during the brutal summer days. Spanish moss hangs from some of the branches, giving the place an authentically Florida feel, though the moss itself was carefully introduced and is monitored to ensure it doesn't damage the trees. The lights woven through the branches create the illusion of fireflies, of magic, of a place where time has somehow become negotiable. A warm breeze moves through the square, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from planted beds along the walkways and the mineral smell of lake water from Lake Sumter itself, which borders one edge of the square. The breeze stirs napkins someone forgot to throw away, sending them skittering across the pavement like small white animals. It rattles a loose awning chain against a metal pole, a rhythmic ticking that could almost be mistaken for a clock. It pushes against a banner advertising an upcoming concert, making it billow and snap. The square doesn't sleep exactly, it waits. The wrought iron benches, painted in a black enamel that's maintained with military precision, sit empty but patient. Each one has a small brass plaque on the backrest, dedications from residents. In memory of Robert Chen, who loved this place, reads one. For Martha, who found joy here, says another. The Hendersons finally home, proclaims a third. These benches represent something more than just places to sit. They're territorial markers, declarations of belonging, small monuments to the idea that this place matters, that lives have meaning here. The flower boxes, recently watered by the maintenance crew's automated system, release their fragrance into the night air. Petunias and impatiens, begonias and geraniums, all chosen for their ability to withstand Florida's heat and their production of constant color. During the day, they're almost garish in their brightness, but now in the subtle lighting, they're muted, their colors suggested rather than displayed. A few night-blooming jasmine bushes contribute their powerful scent, sweet and slightly cloying. The kind of smell that will forever after trigger memories of this place for those who spend time here. Somewhere, a wind chime sways in the breeze, its notes random and soft. It hangs outside one of the retail shops, an expensive model made of tuned aluminum tubes that produce notes from a pentatonic scale. During the day, its sound gets lost in the general noise, but now each note rings clear and separate, a small moment of unintended music. The wind plays it like an instrument, creating melodies that no composer intended, that will never be repeated exactly, that exist only in this moment and then are gone. The American flag on its pole at the corner of the square snaps occasionally in the breeze, a sound like distant applause or a book being closed firmly. The flag is lit from below by a dedicated spotlight, as required by flag etiquette, and even in the middle of the night it waves proudly, red and white stripes alternating, the blue field with its stars catching the light. There's something almost defiant about it, A flag waving at night for no audience, maintaining its dignity in the darkness. A symbol that refuses to sleep. This is the Villages at its most honest, stripped of performance, of schedule, of the constant hum of activity that defines it during waking hours. Just architecture and landscape, light and shadow, the persistent fountain and the patient night. The carefully constructed illusion of a perfect town square, of a community gathered in harmony, of a place where time has been tamed. All of that requires an audience. Without people, it's just materials, brick and concrete, water and electricity, plants growing in soil, metal shaped into decorative forms, and yet there's something beautiful about it this way too. Something true. The square in darkness reveals its bones, its structure, the careful planning that went into creating what appears spontaneous. You can see how the lighting is designed to draw the eye to specific focal points. You can appreciate how the pathways are laid out to encourage circulation while creating intimate spaces. You can notice how the landscaping provides both openness and enclosure, how the buildings form walls that define the space without confining it. A cat crosses the square, moving with that peculiar feline combination of caution and arrogance. It's a tabby, probably belonging to someone who lives in one of the nearby villas, out on its nocturnal rounds. It pauses to drink from the fountain, lapping delicately at the edge where water splashes, then continues on its way, disappearing into shadows beneath an oleander bush. For a moment, it was the only living thing in sight, the only creature actually using this space designed for thousands. In a few hours, everything will change. The coffee shops will open at 6 a.m., their espresso machines hissing and steaming, the smell of brewing coffee beginning to drift across the square. The maintenance crews will arrive even earlier, sweeping the walkways, hosing down the pavement, emptying trash bins, making everything perfect for another day. The first early risers will claim their favorite benches around 7, settling in with newspapers that are rapidly becoming obsolete. Cups of coffee going cold beside them as they read or watch the square come to life. By 8, the pace will have picked up. The retail shops will open their doors, flipping signs from closed to open, arranging merchandise, starting registers. Walkers will circuit the square, getting their exercise, calling greetings to each other. Beautiful morning. Isn't it gorgeous? Another day in paradise. The phrases are ritualistic, part of the social contract here. The agreement to maintain the fiction that every day is perfect, that this place exists outside the normal flows of time and trouble. By 9, the square will be fully awake. Golf carts will be circling, looking for parking spots. The restaurants will be serving breakfast, their patios filling with people ordering eggs and bacon, pancakes and French toast, fueling up for days that stretch ahead with endless possibility and no particular obligations. Tour groups will arrive, prospective buyers being shown around by cheerful sales representatives who paint pictures of life here. The activities, the amenities, the community, the weather, the freedom from maintenance and worry. By 10, the square will be exactly what it was designed to be. A stage set populated by performers who've been given the role of active retiree. They'll browse in shops, attend concerts, meet friends for lunch, take fitness classes, play cards, drink wine, dance, laugh, shop, eat, socialize, relax. They'll inhabit this space that was designed specifically to make them feel young, vital, engaged, purposeful. They'll participate in the grand experiment of the villages, the question of whether you can manufacture community, design happiness, engineer a perfect life for people in their later years. But all of that is hours away. For now, Lake Sumter Landing belongs only to itself. The fountain continues its monologue, water rising and falling with mechanical perfection. The lights glow steadily, drawing power from the grid, transforming electricity into illumination, pushing back the darkness in circles of amber and white. The breeze moves through, indifferent to the carefully planned landscape, following patterns of air pressure and temperature that have nothing to do with human design. The flag waves, the wind chime sounds, the cat completes its journey across the square and vanishes into the night. Somewhere in the distance, a golf cart alarm chirps as someone locks it. Somewhere else, a door closes. A plane passes overhead, red lights blinking, carrying people to or from Orlando, visible only because of those lights, the sound of its engines arriving seconds after it passes overhead. A truck rumbles by on the main road, heading somewhere, carrying something. Part of the larger world that the villages try so hard to keep at arm's length. The square stands empty, waiting. It has waited like this every night since it was built, will wait like this every night for as long as it exists. It's patient in the way that only inanimate things can be patient, without anticipation, without desire, without any sense of time passing. It simply is a stage waiting for its actors, a blank page waiting for words, a space designed for community waiting for the community to return, and it will return. It always does. In a few hours, when the first light begins to gray the eastern sky, when the birds begin their morning chorus, when the overnight security guard clocks out and the opening shift arrives, the square will begin to wake. It will stretch and yawn and come to life, ready to be what it was designed to be. The beating heart of the villages, the gathering place, the town square that never was, the manufactured nostalgia for a past that never existed, the promise that life can continue to be full and rich and meaningful well into what used to be called old age. But that's all ahead. Right now, in this moment that exists between midnight and dawn, Lake Sumter Landing is simply itself. The lights, the warm breeze, the endless, tireless song of the fountain. The last notes of the evening's music have long since faded into memory. The last dancers have driven home. The last conversations have ended. Everything human has been stripped away, leaving only this: water, light, architecture, and the patient darkness that surrounds it all, waiting for the sun to rise and the performance to begin again. The breeze picks up slightly, strong enough to rustle the palm fronds more audibly, to make the banner snap more insistently, to send ripples across the fountain's pool that interfere with the patterns created by the falling water. For a moment, the wind brings a different smell, something wild, something that doesn't belong here, perhaps from the scrub that still exists at the edges of the villages, the unconquered Florida that preceded all of this. Then it passes, and there's only jasmine again, and water, and the warm night air that feels like breathing into a soft blanket. This is the villages at 3 a.m. Honest, stripped bare, waiting. A stage set with no audience, a town square with no town, a carefully constructed illusion taking a breath before resuming its performance. The fountain sings on, indifferent to whether anyone is listening. The lights glow on, indifferent to whether anyone is watching. And the square waits, patient and empty, for morning to come and fill it once again with life, with music, with laughter, with the endless dance of people trying to prove that paradise can be real, that community can be designed, that happiness can be bought and maintained and lived in day after day after day. Until then, there is only this: the fountain, the lights, the breeze, and the night. The night deepens toward that particular quality of darkness that exists only in the hours before dawn. Not the fresh darkness of early evening, but something heavier, more profound, as if the world itself has grown tired and sunk into a deeper rest. The square settles into this darkness like a ship finding its anchor. A possum waddles across the wooden dance floor, its pink nose twitching, its naked tail dragging behind it. It's searching for dropped food, and it finds success near where the band had set up. A few peanuts someone spilled, a piece of pretzel. It eats methodically, without hurry, secure in the knowledge that this is its domain now, that the humans who flood this place during daylight hours have surrendered it back to the creatures who were here first. When it finishes, it ambles off toward the landscaping, disappearing into the mulch beds where the impatiens grow in regimented rows. The fountain's pool is perfectly clear in the underwater lighting, LED fixtures that illuminate the water from beneath, turning it into a glowing turquoise jewel. You can see straight to the bottom, to the pennies and dimes people have tossed in while making wishes. There must be hundreds of them down there, small copper and silver circles carpeting the aquamarine tiles. What did people wish for as they tossed those coins? Health, probably, more time, that their children would visit more often, that their grandchildren would remember them, that the money would last, that the good days would outnumber the bad, that they'd made the right choice in coming here, that this place, this strange manufactured paradise in Central Florida, would deliver on its promises. Some nights, when the wind is right, you can hear music from Spanish Springs, the other major town square about 3 miles away. The sound carries across the landscape, ghostly and distorted. Just the bass notes, usually, the rhythm section of whatever band is playing over there. But tonight the wind is wrong, or perhaps Spanish Springs is already quiet too, and there's no music except what the wind itself makes, moving through the oaks and palms, what the fountain makes in its endless cycle, what the wind chime contributes with its random pentatonic observations. A golf cart passes on the main road that borders the square, moving slowly. It's the second security patrol, a different guard making his rounds through the entire village. His cart has yellow strobe lights on top, flashing lazily as he drives, and a spotlight mounted on the side that he sweeps across darkened areas. He's checking for anything unusual: vandalism, unauthorized visitors, medical emergencies, residents who might have had too much to drink and gotten disoriented on their way home. Mostly his nights are quiet. The village's is remarkably safe, crime almost non-existent, the result of gates and cameras and the simple fact that most residents are in bed by 10. But he drives his route anyway. Every night, the same circuit, the same stops, maintaining the illusion of security that people have paid dearly for. His spotlight sweeps across the square, illuminating the fountain in harsh white light for a moment before moving on. In that brief flash, you can see how the water catches the light, how it sparkles and dances, how it creates 1,000 tiny rainbows in its mist. Then darkness returns, or rather the gentler amber glow of the decorative lighting, and the fountain goes back to being mysterious, romantic, something out of a postcard or a dream. Buildings that ring the square are done in a style that might be called Mediterranean Revival or Florida, vernacular, or possibly fantasy architecture. They feature stucco walls in warm earth tones, terracotta and cream and dusty rose, tile roofs in shades of red and brown, arched doorways and windows, decorative ironwork on balconies that no one ever stands on because they're too small and mostly decorative, columns that support nothing, architectural details borrowed from Spanish colonial buildings, from Italian villas, from places that have nothing to do with Central Florida, but evoke a vague sense of elsewhere, of old world, of somewhere more romantic than a former cattle ranch in the middle of the state. It's all fake. Of course, not just new made to look old, but fundamentally dishonest. A shopping center pretending to be a town square, a commercial development pretending to be a community, a real estate venture pretending to be a lifestyle. The bricks in the walkway were laid 3 years ago, not a century ago. The oaks, though genuine, were trucked in as mature trees and planted by cranes. The fountain was designed by a landscape architecture firm in Atlanta and built by a contractor from Tampa who'd never installed a fountain before and had to watch YouTube videos to figure it out. And yet there's something undeniably effective about it. During the day, when it's filled with people, it feels real. It feels like a community. It feels like a place that has history and meaning and life. The fakeness doesn't seem to matter when there's authentic human connection happening within it. The laughing couples dancing, the friends meeting for coffee, the strangers striking up conversations while waiting in line. That's all real, even if the setting is manufactured. Perhaps the setting is just a tool, a catalyst, a stage that enables real human behavior to occur, or perhaps that's too generous. Perhaps it's all just a very expensive illusion that people have bought into because the alternative, aging, loneliness, irrelevance, is too depressing to contemplate. Perhaps the square is less about community and more about distraction, a way to fill time that suddenly seems both endless and terrifyingly finite. Perhaps the constant activity, the endless calendar of events and classes and concerts and activities is less about engagement and more about avoidance. Stay busy enough and you don't have to think about what comes next. Dance enough nights away and you don't have to acknowledge how few nights might remain. But these are 3 a.m. thoughts, the kind of existential contemplation that the darkness invites. During the day, in the sunshine, with music playing and people laughing, such thoughts seem absurd. Of course this is real. Of course it matters. Of course there's value in a place where people can gather, can connect, can enjoy their later years in comfort and community. The fact that it's been designed and built for profit doesn't negate the genuine happiness that occurs within it. The fountain doesn't judge. It simply runs, water cycling through pumps and pipes and jets, rising and falling, indifferent to philosophy or meaning or the complicated relationship between authenticity and artifice. It was designed to create a focal point, to draw the eye, to provide ambient sound, to add movement and life to the square. In that, it succeeds perfectly. It does exactly what it was designed to do. No more, no less, asking nothing in return except electricity and occasional maintenance. A light comes on in one of the second-floor windows above the shops. Someone is awake. Insomnia, or perhaps a resident who lives in one of the apartments above the retail spaces. These apartments are relatively few and highly sought after. Living above the square means being at the heart of everything, means being able to walk downstairs to dinner or dancing, means never needing to drive anywhere. It also means noise and crowds and the constant sense of being surrounded by people, which some residents crave and others can't tolerate. The light reveals a figure moving behind curtains, someone going to the bathroom, or getting a drink of water, or perhaps standing at the window looking down at the empty square below. What do they think? This person awake at 3 a.m., looking down at the stage set with no audience. Do they see beauty in the emptiness, in the carefully arranged landscape waiting for its purpose? Or do they see something sad, something hollow, like a party that's ended but the decorations haven't been taken down yet? The light goes off after a few minutes. The figure has returned to bed, or at least moved away from the window. The square returns to its patient waiting, unchanged by the brief observation. A newspaper delivery truck arrives, one of the last vestiges of a dying industry. The driver, a man in his 40s doing this as a side job to supplement his income from warehouse work, tosses bundles of papers onto the sidewalk near each business. The Village's Voice, a local publication full of real estate advertisements and puff pieces about residents' accomplishments. The Daily Sun, the Village's own newspaper, covering everything from county politics to the latest pickleball tournament results. And for those who still subscribe, national papers, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, trucked in from distribution centers and delivered to doorsteps across the community. The driver works quickly, efficiently, barely stopping as he moves from location to location. This is his last stop on a route that started at 4 a.m. and covers 3 counties. He doesn't look around, doesn't appreciate the architecture or the fountain or the carefully curated atmosphere. To him, it's just another commercial development, another set of businesses that need newspapers delivered. He finishes in less than 5 minutes and drives away, his truck's engine fading into the distance, leaving behind neat bundles of papers wrapped in plastic, waiting for businesses to open and bring them inside. The eastern sky is beginning to change, not brightening exactly, but thinning somehow, as if the darkness is losing density. It's not yet 4 a.m., but the night is preparing for its inevitable defeat, for the daily resurrection of light. This is the quietest time, the stillest hour, the moment when the night is most itself, when it stopped being yesterday's evening and hasn't yet become today's morning. It exists in a liminal space, undefined and indefinable, belonging to neither yesterday nor tomorrow. The fountain catches this change in some indefinable way. Perhaps it's the quality of light, or perhaps it's something else, something harder to name. But in this pre-dawn hour, the water seems to glow from within, as if the fountain has stored up all the light from the previous day and is now releasing it slowly, reluctantly, back into the world. The ripples in the pool seem more pronounced. The sound of the falling water seems clearer, sharper, as if the approaching dawn is tuning everything to a higher frequency. More lights come on in windows, not in the square itself, but in the surrounding buildings, in the villas and condos that ring this commercial heart. Early risers or insomniacs or people whose aging bodies no longer let them sleep past 5 a.m. no matter how tired they are. Lights in bathrooms, lights in kitchens, the blue glow of televisions flickering behind curtains. The Villages is beginning to wake, beginning to stir, beginning to prepare for another day of orchestrated leisure, another 16 hours of activity and entertainment and community and fun. A bird begins to sing, just one, somewhere in the oak trees. It's tentative at first, A few experimental notes, as if checking whether it's really time, whether the others are ready. Then it commits, launching into full song, and within moments it's joined by others, and then by dozens more, until the air fills with morning chorus, cardinals and mockingbirds, wrens and sparrows, doves and jays, all announcing the coming day with the enthusiasm of creatures who have no choice but to be present, to be alive, to greet each dawn as if it's the first dawn there ever was. The security guard returns for his final round before his shift ends. He looks more tired now, his shoulders slightly slumped, his pace a bit slower. It's been a quiet night, as most nights are, and he's looking forward to going home, to eating breakfast with his wife, to sleeping through the morning while the villages roars to life around him. He checks the doors one last time, makes a few notes in his log, then drives to the security office to clock out. His replacement will arrive in an hour, fresh and ready, taking over the responsibility of watching over this strange place where thousands of people have come to live out their final chapters. The newspaper bundles remain on the sidewalk, but not for long. The first business owner arrives, the manager of the coffee shop that will open in an hour. She's a woman in her 30s, one of the younger people who work in the villages, commuting in from Wildwood where housing is cheaper and life is grittier. She unlocks the door, disables the alarm, and begins the opening routine. Turning on lights, starting the espresso machine, checking that everything is stocked and ready. She brings in the newspapers and sets them on the counter where customers can take them with their coffee. She doesn't particularly like working here, finds the residents sometimes demanding and entitled, their problems trivial, their worldview narrow. But the tips are good and the hours are predictable. And in an economy where neither of those things can be taken for granted, she's grateful for the job even if it means smiling at people who casually spend on coffee what she spends on groceries for a week. She starts the espresso machine, a gleaming Italian thing that cost more than her car, and begins grinding beans, filling the morning air with that rich, bitter smell that signals day has truly begun. The maintenance crew arrives in force, not just one worker now, but 6, moving with coordinated efficiency. They spread across the square, each with specific tasks. One sweeps the dance floor, collecting leaves and debris that accumulated overnight. Another wipes down tables and arranges chairs, removing them from where they were stacked on tabletops and placing them in precise configurations that look casual but are anything but. A third checks the fountain, testing water quality, adjusting the pumps, skimming leaves from the surface. A fourth tends to the plants, deadheading flowers, checking irrigation systems, replacing any plants that have died or are looking stressed. A fifth empties trash bins and replaces liner bags. A sixth walks the perimeter, checking lights, looking for anything damaged or out of place. They work mostly in silence, speaking to each other only when necessary. They're all Latino, all immigrants or children of immigrants, all paid wages that wouldn't cover the monthly HOA fees most residents pay without thinking. They're invisible to most people who use the square, noticed only when something isn't perfect, when a flower is dead, or a table is dirty, or a light is out. They're the stage crew that keeps the illusion running, the behind-the-scenes workers who maintain the fantasy that this place simply exists in perpetual perfection, that no human effort is required to sustain it. The sky is definitely lighter now, shifting from black to gray to a pale blue that promises another warm, sunny day. The stars have faded, rendered invisible by the approaching sun. The fountain is still running, still singing its endless song, but it looks different in the growing light, less mysterious, more mechanical, revealing itself as the manufactured object it is, rather than the romantic feature it seems to be in darkness or evening. More businesses begin to open. The bakery fills the air with smells of fresh bread and pastries. The restaurant that serves breakfast raises its umbrellas and arranges outdoor seating. The retail shops turn on lights, unlock doors, flip signs to open, even though no customers will appear for hours yet. It's all preparation, all staging, all getting ready for the performance that will begin when the first residents arrive around 7 a.m., and they will arrive, just as they did yesterday and will tomorrow. They'll come for coffee and newspapers, for breakfast and conversation, for walking laps around the square to get their exercise, for the simple pleasure of being out, of being among people, of being part of something. They'll fill this space with life and noise and energy, transforming it from an empty stage set into a genuine gathering place, however manufactured its origins might be. The fountain continues to run as dawn breaks fully over Lake Sumter Landing. The water still rises and falls, indifferent to day or night, to people or emptiness, to meaning or meaninglessness. It simply does what it was designed to do, what it will continue to do until the pumps fail, or the pipes burst, or the villages itself crumbles back into the Florida scrubland from which it was carved. The last notes of the evening's music are long gone now, dissipated into the air, existing only in the memories of those who heard them, and in the digital recordings on phones that captured moments to be shared with distant children and grandchildren. The last dancers are asleep in their beds, their feet sore, their hearts full, already looking forward to next week when they'll return to dance again. The square has passed through its nightly death and is being resurrected once more, ready to be whatever people need it to be: gathering place, entertainment venue, commercial center, community heart, stage set for the ongoing performance of active adult living. The sun clears the horizon and Lake Sumter Landing is fully awake. The night has ended. The day has begun. The fountain runs on, unchanged, eternal, patient, waiting for evening to come again so it can once more become the romantic centerpiece of a manufactured paradise. The focal point of a square where people gather to prove that life doesn't end at 65. That community can be designed, that happiness can be purchased. That paradise, however artificial, is still paradise if you're willing to believe in it. By 6:30, the first residents begin to appear. They arrive on foot, in golf carts, on bicycles, the early birds, the habitual risers, the ones whose internal clocks remain stubbornly set to working world schedules despite years of retirement. They're mostly men at this hour, in their 60s and 70s, wearing shorts and polo shirts, visors and baseball caps. They congregate outside the coffee shop, waiting for it to officially open, even though they can see the manager inside, can smell the coffee brewing, can see the lights on and the chairs arranged. Morning. Bill. Hey, Tom, how'd you sleep? Like a rock. You? Up twice. Getting old. They chuckle at this, the obligatory acknowledgement of aging that somehow makes it less frightening when shared. They talk about the weather, going to be hot today, might hit 90, and about their plans, golf at 8, pickleball at 10, lunch with the wives, maybe the afternoon concert if it's not too hot. They talk about last night's band, pretty good, not as good as the one 2 weeks ago, but still pretty good, and about who was there and who wasn't, and how Helen and Bob are getting really good at the tango. At 6:45, the coffee shop manager unlocks the door and the men file in, each ordering their usual, the order so routine that words are barely necessary. Black coffee, medium. Latte, extra shot. Cappuccino, skim milk. Americano, no room. They pay with cash or credit cards, leave tips in the jar by the register. Singles mostly, occasionally a 5 from someone feeling generous or guilty. They take their cups outside to the tables that are now arranged around the square, settling into spots that have become unofficially theirs through habit and repetition. The newspaper readers arrive next, slightly later, around 7. They claim the benches, spreading papers across their laps, squinting at headlines and articles, even though most of them are wearing reading glasses. Some still get physical newspapers delivered to their homes, but prefer to read them here, in company, even if they don't actually interact with the others around them. The presence is what matters. The sense of being part of something, of sharing space with fellow humans, of not being alone. A group of power walkers circuits the square, moving at speeds that seem almost comical. Their arms pumping, their faces set with determination. They're mostly women, mostly in athletic wear that costs more than some people's monthly rent. Designer leggings and moisture-wicking tops, premium walking shoes with specialized arch support. They do laps around the square, 5 laps equals a mile, and most of them do at least 3 miles before breakfast. They wave to people they know but don't stop, don't break stride, committed to their fitness routines with the intensity of people trying to outrun mortality itself. By 7:30, the square has achieved a critical mass of occupation, not crowded yet, but populated, activated, alive with the particular energy of morning routines being performed. The coffee shop has a steady stream of customers now. The bakery is selling out of its first batch of croissants and muffins. The restaurant is seating its first breakfast customers, couples mostly, settling into outdoor tables to order eggs and bacon and pancakes while watching the square wake up around them. The retail shops remain mostly empty. It's too early for shopping. Too early for anything but caffeine and exercise and newspapers. But their employees are inside, preparing, straightening merchandise, counting registers, checking inventory. Most of these workers are younger, in their 20s and 30s. Many of them students at nearby colleges, who found that working in the villages pays better than campus jobs and is considerably less stressful than food service or retail in the outside world. The residents can be demanding. Yes, but they're also polite mostly, and they tip well, and they don't come in drunk or belligerent at midnight. A young woman named Ashley is opening the boutique that sells resort wear. She's 23, attending community college part-time while working here 30 hours a week. She likes this job more than she expected to. The clothes are nice, the shop is clean and air-conditioned, and the residents treat her kindly, ask about her classes, remember details from previous conversations. Some of them remind her of her grandparents, and she finds herself becoming genuinely fond of certain regular customers. The woman who always asks her opinion on colors. The man shopping for his wife who tells stories about their 50-year marriage. The widow who comes in weekly to browse even though she rarely buys anything. Clearly just lonely and wanting someone to talk to. Ashley arranges a display of sundresses, fluffing fabric, adjusting hangers, making everything look effortless and appealing. She knows that most of her sales will happen in the afternoon, when residents come to the square for lunch and entertainment and decide to browse. Mornings are quiet, which she doesn't mind. It gives her time to do homework behind the counter, to study for exams, to work toward a degree in nursing that will eventually let her leave this job, this place, this strange bubble of manufactured retirement living. She watches through the window as the square fills with people, as golf carts circle looking for parking, as couples stroll hand in hand toward breakfast. Sometimes she wonders what it would be like to live here, to be 65 or 70 and have nothing to do but enjoy yourself. It seems both wonderful and terrifying, all that freedom, all that time, all that pressure to be happy and active and engaged. She can't quite imagine it. Can't project herself forward 40 years to a time when her body won't work quite right, and her children, if she has children, will be grown and gone, and all the striving will be over, replaced by, "What? This? Golf and pickleball and live music and shopping for sundresses?" But maybe it's different when you get there. Maybe by the time you're 65, this is exactly what you want. Maybe after decades of working and raising children and meeting obligations, the idea of days filled with leisure and pleasure and optional activities sounds like heaven rather than purgatory. Maybe she's too young to understand, too far from that life stage to appreciate what it offers. The fountain sparkles in the morning sun, water droplets catching light and throwing tiny rainbows into the air. It looks different now than it did at 3 a.m., less mysterious, more cheerful, like the difference between candlelight and daylight. A small child, a grandchild visiting given the demographics, breaks away from her grandparents and runs to the fountain, leaning over to touch the water. The grandmother calls out, "Careful, sweetie," but doesn't move to stop her. The child giggles as water splashes her hand, and the sound carries across the square, bright and pure, a reminder that life continues across generations, that this place designed for people in their later years still makes space for youth, for visitors, for the ongoing current of human existence. By 8 a.m., the square has fully transformed from its nighttime emptiness to its daytime purpose. The wooden dance floor that was empty at 3 now serves as a thoroughfare for pedestrians cutting across the square. The benches that sat vacant now host newspaper readers and coffee drinkers and couples planning their days. The shops that were dark now glow with inviting light. The restaurants that were closed now emanate smells of breakfast and coffee and fresh-baked goods. A golf cart parking attendant arrives, an elderly man who volunteers for this duty because it gives him something to do and makes him feel useful. He wears an orange safety vest and carries a whistle, and he takes his job with utmost seriousness, directing golf carts to available spaces, preventing the chaos that would otherwise ensue as dozens of carts try to navigate the limited parking. He knows most of the regular visitors by name, greets them cheerfully, asks about their families and their health. He's been widowed for 3 years and moved to the villages because his daughter insisted he couldn't live alone anymore. And this volunteer position has become the structure around which he organizes his days. Without it, he's not sure what he would do with all the hours that stretch ahead. The band shell, empty now, still bears traces of last night's performance. A set list taped to the floor. A guitar pick someone dropped, scuff marks from the drummer's hardware. Later today, someone will come to prepare for tonight's performance. A different band, a different style, but the same essential purpose: providing entertainment, creating atmosphere, giving people a reason to come to the square after dinner, to stay out past dark, to dance and socialize, and pretend that life is an endless party where the music never stops. A maintenance worker checks the fountain's operation, clipboard in hand, making notes about water clarity and flow rate and the condition of the lights. This is a daily ritual. The fountain is the centerpiece of the square, and keeping it running perfectly is a priority. If it were to break down, if the water were to stop flowing, it would feel like a heart-stopping, like the square itself had died. The maintenance worker knows this, feels the weight of this responsibility. He takes pride in keeping the fountain running, in ensuring that residents and visitors can always count on its presence, its sound, its steady reassurance that some things, at least, are reliable and unchanging. More people arrive constantly now, a steady stream that will continue until mid-morning. They come for exercise classes held in a studio above one of the shops, yoga, tai chi, water aerobics in a nearby pool. They come for breakfast meetings of various clubs and organizations: the Democratic Club, the Republican Club, the Knitting Circle, the Book Group, the Wine Appreciation Society, the Travel Club, the Volunteer Organization. The Villages has more clubs than many small towns have residents, serving every conceivable interest from ballroom dancing to woodworking to theater to computers to sports to hobbies to politics to religion. A tour group arrives. 15 people ranging from their mid-50s to early 70s, all prospective buyers being shown around by a sales representative. She's in her 40s, professionally dressed, carrying a tablet and wearing a headset microphone that lets the whole group hear her pitch as they walk. She gestures to the square, describing its features, its amenities, its role in the village's lifestyle. As you can see, Lake Sumter Landing is really the heart of our community, she says, her voice practiced and enthusiastic. We have live entertainment every single night. Yes, every night, and it's all free. No cover charge, no minimum, just come and enjoy. We have restaurants, shops, a movie theater complex just a short cart ride away. Everything you need, all within easy reach. The prospective buyers look around, taking it in. Some seem skeptical, others enchanted, most somewhere in between. They're trying to imagine themselves here, trying to picture their lives in this place that seems almost too good to be true. Can it really be like this? Can you really just show up and dance whenever you want? Is it really this active, this alive, this full of people and energy and possibility? And this is just one of our town squares, the sales representative continues. We also have Spanish Springs and Brownwood Paddock Square, each with their own unique character and entertainment. You could go out every night for weeks and never see the same band twice. One of the prospective buyers, a woman who looks to be in her early 60s, asks, "But what if you don't like crowds? What if you want quiet?" The sales representative smiles. She's heard this question 1,000 times. That's the beauty of the Villages. You can be as social or as private as you want. Come to the squares when you want activity and energy, stay home when you want quiet. It's all about choices, about having options. Some of our residents are out every night, others we barely see. Both lifestyles are completely valid. The group continues their tour, heading toward the shops, and the sales representative's voice fades as they move away. Behind them, the square continues its morning routine, indifferent to whether they buy or not, whether they join this community or choose somewhere else to spend their retirement years. The square will be here regardless, performing its function, serving its purpose, offering its particular brand of manufactured community to whoever chooses to participate. A man sits alone at a table outside the coffee shop, staring at his phone with an expression of profound sadness. He's been there for 30 minutes, hasn't touched his coffee, hasn't acknowledged anyone who's walked past. Something is wrong. You can see it in the slump of his shoulders, the way he keeps checking his phone as if hoping for a message that hasn't come. Perhaps it's family trouble, a sick child or grandchild, a relationship that's fractured, news of some loss. Or perhaps it's health, test results that came back wrong, a diagnosis that changes everything. The body betraying him despite all his efforts to stay active and healthy. Whatever it is, it doesn't belong in this square. In this place designed for happiness and leisure, and the fiction that life in retirement is simple and good. His sadness is a crack in the illusion, a reminder that pain doesn't respect boundaries. That sorrow can find you even in paradise. That no amount of live music and pickleball and social activities can protect you from the fundamental difficulties of being human and mortal and connected to other people who are also human and mortal. A woman approaches his table, his wife, presumably. She's carrying 2 plates of breakfast from the restaurant. She sets one in front of him, touches his shoulder gently, sits down across from him. They don't speak, but the gesture is tender, practiced. The wordless communication of people who've been together long enough to know when words aren't necessary or helpful. She begins to eat, and after a moment, he does too, mechanically. Not tasting it probably, but going through the motions because that's what you do. You eat breakfast, you continue, you go on. The square absorbs this moment of private pain without comment, without acknowledgement. The fountain keeps running, the birds keep singing, the other people keep moving through their routines. Life continues around suffering, indifferent to it, not cruel, but simply incapable of stopping for every individual moment of hurt. The square will be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, offering the same things it always offers: music, community, entertainment, distraction, the promise that life can still be good even when it's also hard. By 9 o'clock, the square has reached its morning equilibrium, not as crowded as it will be at lunchtime or in the evening, but comfortably populated, alive with the particular energy of a place being used for its intended purpose. People are eating breakfast, drinking coffee, reading newspapers, exercising, shopping, socializing, existing together in this shared space that someone designed and built and maintains with meticulous care. The fountain continues its song, water rising and falling, the sound now almost drowned out by human voices and golf cart engines and music playing from shop speakers and the general ambient noise of commercial activity. But it's still there, still running, still serving as the heart of the square, the focal point around which everything else organizes itself. And in a few hours, as the sun climbs higher and the heat builds and the afternoon stretches out, some people will leave and others will arrive, the population of the square shifting and changing, but maintaining its essential character. There will be lunch crowds and afternoon shoppers, people taking breaks from golf or tennis or swimming, tourists and residents, volunteers and employees, all moving through this space that exists to serve them, to give them somewhere to be, something to do, a place to gather that feels like community, even if it was designed by committee and built by contractors and exists primarily to sell real estate. Tonight, the band will set up again on the wooden platform, will sound check and arrange their equipment and prepare to play. As the sun sets and the lights come on and the evening cools from oppressive to merely warm, people will begin to arrive. By 8 o'clock, the square will be crowded with dancers and listeners, drinkers and diners, people who came for the music and people who came because this is what you do on a Thursday night in the villages. The cycle will repeat as it has every night since this place was built, as it will continue for as long as the villages exists. And then, sometime after 10, the last song will play. The last notes will fade into the warm night air. The couples will dance their final dance. The square will empty. The lights will glow over empty benches and quiet tables. The fountain will sing to no audience, and the whole thing will begin again. This is Lake Sumter Landing, a stage that never closes, a performance that never ends, a carefully constructed illusion that becomes real through sheer force of repetition and participation. The square that sleeps but never dreams, that waits but never hopes, that serves but never judges. The fountain runs on, indifferent and eternal, patient and mechanical, beautiful and empty, the heart of a manufactured paradise that beats with borrowed life, sustained by electricity and maintenance, and the willing suspension of disbelief required to call any of this real. But it is real, in its way. The connections people make here are real. The joy they feel dancing is real. The friendships formed over coffee are real. The sense of community, however manufactured its setting, is real. The square is just a tool, just a stage, just a carefully designed space meant to facilitate human interaction. But the interactions themselves, those are genuine, messy, complicated, beautiful, painful, utterly human. The sun climbs higher. The day grows hotter. Life in the villages continues, relentless and cheerful. Determined to prove that paradise exists if you're willing to pay for it, that community can be designed, that the later years of life don't have to be about decline and loss, but can be about dancing and music and warm evenings and the endless, patient song of water rising and falling in a fountain that never sleeps. By 10 o'clock, the character of the square shifts again. The early risers have mostly dispersed, gone home, or moved on to their golf games, their tennis matches, their pickleball tournaments, their volunteer commitments. A different population emerges now. The later sleepers, the people who spent last night out dancing until 11 and didn't wake until 8:30, the ones who prefer brunch to breakfast, who approach their days with less rigid scheduling and more spontaneity. A group of women in their late 60s settles at a large table outside the restaurant, pulling together chairs, arranging purses and sunglasses, ordering mimosas before they've even looked at the food menu. They're loud in the unself-conscious way of people who've stopped caring what strangers think, who've earned the right to take up space and make noise and enjoy themselves without apology. Their laughter rings across the square, genuine and infectious, the sound of friendship that's deepened over years of proximity and shared experiences. Did you see what Linda was wearing last night? One of them asks, and the others lean in, eager for gossip that's probably harmless but feels deliciously transgressive. They talk about their neighbors, their families, their bodies, always their bodies, the constant topic of conversation among people whose physical forms are betraying them in small and large ways. Someone's knee is acting up. Someone else is scheduled for cataract surgery. A third is trying a new medication for her blood pressure and experiencing strange side effects. They trade stories like battle reports, comparing symptoms and doctors and treatments with the expertise of people who've become amateur medical scholars out of necessity. But they also talk about good things. Someone's grandson got accepted to his first-choice college. Someone else is planning a trip to Italy in the fall. A third just bought a new golf cart and is having it customized with a sound system and custom paint. They make plans, a wine tasting next week, a day trip to the beach, tickets to a show in Orlando. Their calendars are full, their lives packed with activities and commitments and choices. If they're aware of the irony that they worked for decades to reach retirement so they could finally relax, only to fill their days with such relentless scheduling that they're as busy as they ever were, they don't mention it. A golf cart pulls up marked with Village's Public Safety on the side. Not a security guard, but a community patrol officer. An older resident who volunteers to drive around and assist people, help with directions, call for medical help if needed, generally serve as a friendly presence and extra set of eyes. He's retired law enforcement, 30 years as a cop in New Jersey before moving here 5 years ago. He parks and gets out, stretching his back. The golf cart seats aren't designed for someone 6'3", and does a slow walk around the square, nodding to people he recognizes, checking that everything seems normal and safe. He stops to help an elderly woman who's struggling with packages from the home goods store, carrying them to her golf cart and loading them carefully into the back. She thanks him effusively, offers him a tip which he refuses with practiced grace. "That's what we're here for, ma'am." "You have a great day now." She drives off, and he continues his circuit, stopping to chat with the parking attendant, to wave at the women having mimosas, to check in with the coffee shop manager about whether there were any issues overnight. This is what he does now. This is his purpose: maintaining order and safety in a place where serious crime is almost non-existent, where the biggest threats are golf cart accidents and medical emergencies and the occasional domestic dispute. It's a long way from the streets of Newark, from domestic violence calls and gang activity and drug busts, and the constant low-level fear that made him sleep poorly for 3 decades. Here, the worst thing he typically encounters is someone who's had too much to drink at a wine tasting, or a couple arguing about whether they should have bought the upgraded golf cart package. He's not sure if he misses the adrenaline, the sense of doing something that matters, of standing between order and chaos. Some days he does. Some days this feels like playing cop, like pretending, like being a mall security guard with delusions of relevance. But other days, most days, he's grateful. Grateful to be somewhere safe, somewhere calm, somewhere his wife doesn't worry every time he leaves the house. Grateful that his most stressful decision is usually whether to have the grouper or the salmon for lunch. He gets back in his golf cart and continues his patrol, driving the perimeter of the square, then heading off toward the residential areas beyond, disappearing into the maze of streets and cul-de-sacs and amenity centers that make up the villages. The sun is high now, approaching its zenith, and the heat is building to levels that will soon drive most people indoors or into pools. The awnings over the outdoor seating areas provide shade but can't do much about the humidity, the thick, wet air that wraps around you like a warm towel. The people still sitting outside are either acclimated to Florida weather or too stubborn to admit defeat. They order iced drinks and fan themselves with menus and dab at foreheads with napkins. The fountain's mist, which seemed merely decorative earlier, now serves a practical purpose, cooling the air by a few degrees in its immediate vicinity. People drift toward it unconsciously, drawn by the promise of relief. Children visiting their grandparents splash water on their faces and arms, ignoring grandparental warnings about getting wet. A dog strains at its leash, wanting to jump into the fountain, held back by an owner who knows that's not allowed, but sympathizes with the impulse. Inside the air-conditioned shops, business picks up as people seek refuge from the heat. They browse without much intention to buy, touching fabrics, examining merchandise, asking questions of employees who know they're mostly just killing time until lunch or their next scheduled activity. The boutique where Ashley works gets a steady trickle of customers, women mostly, looking at clothes they don't need for events they haven't planned, shopping as activity rather than necessity. An older woman, perhaps 75, tries on a sundress in the fitting room, studying herself in the mirror with an expression that's hard to read. The dress is beautiful, a flowing floral print in blues and greens, flattering despite her age, well-made and expensive. She can afford it easily. Money isn't the question, but something holds her back. Maybe she's thinking about where she would wear it. Maybe she's confronting the gap between how she feels inside, still vital, still feminine, still herself, and what the mirror shows: a body that's aged, skin that's wrinkled, a shape that's thickened despite her best efforts. Or maybe she's thinking about her late husband, about how he would have liked this dress, would have complimented her, would have taken her somewhere special so she could wear it. He's been gone 2 years now, and she moved to the villages 6 months ago because her children insisted she needed to be somewhere with activities and people her own age and things to do. She's trying. She really is. She joined a book club and a water aerobics class. She goes to the concerts, though she usually leaves early. She has coffee with neighbors, makes small talk about grandchildren and weather and the quality of the landscaping. But buying a new dress feels like something else. Feels like admitting that this is her life now. That she's not just visiting or trying this out, but actually living here. That she's a village's resident rather than a woman who's temporarily displaced. The dress is for someone who's building a new life, who's embracing this place and what it offers. She's not sure she's ready to be that person yet. Ashley knocks gently on the fitting room door. "How's it going in there? Can I get you a different size or color?" The woman makes a decision. "I'll take it," she says, her voice stronger than she feels. Maybe buying the dress is the first step. Maybe you fake it until you make it. Maybe you put on a beautiful new sundress and go to a concert and smile at people, and eventually it stops feeling like pretending and starts feeling like living. She brings it to the counter, adding a pair of sandals and a bracelet that caught her eye. Ashley rings it up, makes conversation about the weather and the evening's entertainment, wraps everything carefully in tissue paper, and places it in a bag with the boutique's logo. The woman pays with a credit card, leaves a cash tip in the jar by the register, and walks out into the heat carrying her purchases. Ashley watches her go, wondering what story lies behind the transaction. What brought this woman to the Villages? Whether she's happy here or just going through the motions. But another customer approaches with a question about sizes, and the moment passes, and Ashley returns to her role as helpful sales associate, smiling and professional, and thinking about her nursing school application that's due next week. The lunch rush begins around 11:30, earlier than in the outside world. But the Villages runs on a schedule that's shifted forward by an hour or two. Early dinners, early bedtimes, early risings. The restaurants fill with people ordering sandwiches and salads, fish tacos and burgers, glasses of wine and iced tea. Conversations buzz, louder now as hearing aids struggle with ambient noise, people unconsciously raising their voices to compensate. A couple in their 80s sits at a small table, holding hands across the surface, barely touching their food. They're newlyweds, married 3 months ago, both widowed, both residents of the Villages, who met at a dance class and shocked their adult children by deciding to marry. The children worried it was too fast, too impulsive, inappropriate somehow for people their age to feel such urgency about companionship and love. But sitting here watching them, it's impossible not to see that they're genuinely happy, that they've found something precious and rare, that they're making the most of however much time they have left. "I can't believe we almost didn't come to that class," she says, squeezing his hand. "Best decision I ever made," he responds. Showing up that day, they both know the math, know that statistically they don't have decades ahead of them, know that one or both of them will likely face serious health issues sooner rather than later. But right now, in this moment, sitting in the sunshine at Lake Sumter Landing, holding hands and barely eating their lunch because they're too busy looking at each other, right now is enough. Right now is everything. This is what the Villages promises ultimately, not immortality, not eternal youth, but the chance to keep living fully for as long as you can. The chance to meet someone new at 80 and fall in love. The chance to take up ballroom dancing at 75. The chance to learn pickleball or join a theater group or volunteer at the animal shelter or start a book club. The chance to fill your days with activity and purpose and connection rather than slowly fading into irrelevance and isolation. Whether it delivers on that promise depends on who you ask. For the couple holding hands, clearly it does. For the woman buying the sundress, the jury's still out. For the man staring at his phone with sad eyes this morning, perhaps it doesn't. Or perhaps it does, but can't protect against all of life's pain. For the widow drinking mimosas with her friends, it's working. But she's also realistic enough to know that places don't save you. You have to save yourself. And even then, some days are harder than others. The fountain runs through all of it, unchanged by individual stories, indifferent to successes and failures, joys and sorrows. It's been running since the square opened, will continue running until something breaks or someone turns it off. It's both the most permanent and the most ephemeral feature of the square. Permanent in its physical presence. Ephemeral in that the water is always moving, always changing, never the same from one moment to the next, even though it appears constant. A philosophy student would have a field day with that fountain, with what it represents about permanence and change, about illusion and reality, about the way we construct meaning from meaningless things. But there are no philosophy students here. Just retirees trying to enjoy their lunch, trying to fill their days, trying to figure out how to be old in a culture that worships youth, trying to find dignity and purpose and joy in a life stage that society often treats as an afterthought. By 1 o'clock, the lunch crowd begins to thin. The heat has become oppressive, the kind of afternoon heat that makes being outside feel like being slowly cooked. People retreat to air-conditioned spaces, their homes, the movie theater, the indoor recreation centers, the pools where at least the water provides relief. The square doesn't empty completely, but it quiets, enters the afternoon siesta, a lull before the evening revival. The shops stay open, but see fewer customers. Employees check their phones, restock shelves, take breaks in back rooms where the air conditioning works better. The restaurants shift to the slower afternoon hours, servers catching up on side work, kitchen staff prepping for dinner service. The square has exhaled, relaxed, let its shoulders drop. The fountain continues its song. But it sounds different in the afternoon heat, sharper somehow, more insistent, as if trying to convince people that water exists, that coolness is possible, that relief is available if you just come closer. The mist it creates catches the sunlight and creates tiny rainbows, small promises of beauty, small reminders that even in discomfort, there are moments worth noticing. A maintenance worker arrives to tend to the plants, but he works quickly, efficiently, wanting to finish before the heat becomes dangerous. He deadheads flowers, checks the irrigation system, makes notes about which plants are struggling and might need to be replaced. Everything here must look perfect, must maintain the illusion of effortless beauty, which means constant work behind the scenes, constant vigilance, constant intervention to prevent nature from doing what nature does, which is to grow wild, to die back, to follow its own rhythms rather than human preferences. He finishes and retreats to his air-conditioned truck, sitting for a moment with the vents pointed at his face, drinking cold water from an insulated bottle. This is his 4th year working for the villages, and he still marvels at the scale of it, at the resources devoted to maintaining this particular vision of retirement living. The number of workers it takes to keep everything running smoothly, to maintain the illusion of perfection, is staggering. Landscapers and maintenance crews, security and housekeeping, servers and bartenders and shop workers and golf course employees, thousands of people working to support the lifestyles of the residents. Most of them paid wages the residents wouldn't consider living on. He doesn't resent it exactly. It's a job, and a decent one by local standards. But sometimes he wonders what the residents think about, whether they notice all the labor that goes into making their lives comfortable, whether they appreciate it or take it for granted. Probably both, he decides. People are complicated. They can be both grateful and oblivious, both generous and entitled, both aware and blind. Just like him, just like everyone. He starts his truck and drives to the next location, the next set of flower beds that need tending, the next piece of the villages that needs maintaining. The work never ends, will never end as long as this place exists. The fountain will need cleaning, the flowers will need watering, the dance floor will need sweeping, the trash will need emptying, the lights will need replacing. Behind the scenes, always, the work continues, invisible and essential, keeping the dream alive.